All right. So I think we have completed up to, right? String indexing is done, I hope. So repeating, concatenating is also done, right? Okay, right. So some of the string methods are like replace. Okay, you can just if you have a substring and if you want to replace it with something, for example, s is equal to, okay, let's start with hands-on. S dot replace. I want to replace a substring. Then you can use something like this: parenthesis and the actual substring, the replacement substring, and you can start. I don't want start. I want begin, and you can do it, right? Originally your S is this. When print S, and then I'm changed, right? When you change it, you can also throw it as an output. You can also put it to another variable, because most of the times this in Python, when the function is applied, it returns the output. If the output is returned and you don't save it, it will be shown as output here. But let's say look at yes again here. It still shows us, let's start with hands-on. You are like worried, hey, I executed s dot replace, it showed me output, but s didn't change. Why? Because most of the time these functions, they return the changed object. If you have to change it, you have to assign it back like this. And now it will change. So be careful with that part of it. When you execute some operation, is it changing the original data frame or original data type, or is it returning you changed data type? Based on that, sometimes these functions change the original ones. Sometimes they do return the changed type. So be careful with that. And yeah, hope you guys are following and practicing with me. Try it out. Let's replace. And by the way, you have some more thing called, one more thing called find. Find gives you the index where the substring starts. So s dot find 6. Why 6? Because the index of beg is 6. Can also do s of 6. You get b. So it gives the starting index. Find. Of course, when we go to NLP, we will study much more advanced string processing. We have more powerful functions like NLTK, package, or Spacie and all. This is a basic Python. That's string.find, and join is one more method where you can join multiple strings. So I think we still have cities. Yeah. Okay. Cities underscore string is equal to parenthesis dot join, and you just pass the list and you'll get a new string. What am I doing here? I'm taking each element and putting a comma and joining each of them into a string. Earlier it was a list. I can go on merging all of them into a comma separated function. You can also do a space separated. So whatever you keep in the parenthesis will be the separator for each item in the string. Try this out with your own example. Replace, find, and join. All the three operations, try it out. Any questions, guys? I hope you are able to follow and do it. All right. So the opposite method of join is nothing but split, and just show you how do you want to split. Okay, we can do the same thing. Series underscore string dot split, and you can specify the separator. If you don't specify the separator, it takes the space as okay. There's no parenthesis. If you don't specify, it will directly take the space as separator. But let's say if you specify, for example, I can put a colon and create the cities of string. Now the string is colon separated. All right. And if you have to split this kind of things, then you have to use dot split. Inside the parenthesis, put this, and you will be still able to separate. But if you don't do this and just say split, it won't split, because by default split only uses the space as a separator point. Wherever this space is there, it will separate. So join and split are exactly opposite. You can use anything as a separator and join. You can use anything as a separator and split. That split, and you can try or strip upper. Some more functions are there. I'll leave it for you to explore. R strip is nothing but it truncates any spaces present on the right hand side of the string. For example, if you have seen here, let's begin the Python tutorial, and I've left 3 spaces intentionally here. Right, this happens a lot in data operation, especially reading. A lot of unnecessary spaces come into picture, so you can use R strip. Will remove that at the end. String dot upper will increase the and make it uppercase. Ends with or starts with, you can check whether string is starting with or ending with something. And there's some class tasks, you can explore it after the class. And okay, there's one more thing called as string formatting. Again, more of when you especially in Jupyter notebook, you don't need all these things, but when you write real programs which get executed on command prompt and all, so there are something called as placeholders. These are nothing but what placeholders do, that is like it makes some variable inside the string, space for variables in the string. What do you mean by variables? Generally, if you say a string, inside the string you cannot change anything in a dynamic way. But let's say you have an use case wherein you wanted to keep on using the same string, but inside the string you wanted to change the variable. Let's say how many number of balls are remaining in the match. You're printing it out from a database. Let's say, I mean, this many balls are left. That this many keeps on should change. So in such operations, the placeholders are used. So when placeholders are used, percentage D, percentage S, a lot of placeholders for string. Percentage D is like integer placeholder. Percentage S is like string placeholder. You can use this string as it is, and outside this you can put a percentage and just pass the same, pass some numbers, and it will print for you. I'll explain. It was a one-sided match. Now you change here to, it was a two-sided match. So how can you iterate it is like for I in range 5. Right here. This is how it works. So I can keep changing. Of course, I didn't change sided here, but the 0-sided match, 1-sided match, 2-sided match doesn't make sense, but yeah. Okay, it makes sense when okay, it should be exactly opposite. Of course, it's starting from 0. 0 balls left, 1 ball left, 2 balls left, 3 balls left. Something like this. So that's the use case of placeholders again. More of basic Python. You don't come across all this in when you build models, but when you deploy or when you try to show it off, this kind of operations are useful. The next part is flow of control, right? Before going to flow of control, we have to look at logical operators. Guys, have a look at it. All the logical operators given here. So this is basic looping, where you write if loop, for loop, and while loop, etc. Have a look at it, and also please try the formatting expression, try executing it. All right. So let's continue with the flow of control. First of all, is we'll cover if else loop. I hope this fundamental function which we have learned in childhood also. If else loop is very simple. First of all, it is if uh, and then you put a condition or a logical operator or a logical equation, and then inside you can write your statement or multiple statements if necessary, and then followed by else, and each of if and else should be ending with a colon, right? Without colon you'll get an error. So else is not mandatory, but it's optional. You can put else, or you can just write just if loop, if else. And there's multi nested if or a nested else if, wherein you have more than 3 conditions you can do it. For example, I'm taking a simple use case, a equal to -5. I want to print if it's negative number or a positive number. A equal to, this is how I do it. Just execute it in front of you. Right, we wanted to print negative number or positive number. Right, so if you want have multiple, I mean third also, like positive number, else if you have to come back. Okay, it's not else if, it's else if a greater than 0, print number, and then you can put else, print 0. It should be a colon here. Negative number, you put 5, will show positive number, 0 and 0. Again, a very basic operation. Try it out, guys, everyone. And you can put a loop inside a loop also, nested if else. So wherein in the first if you go inside, and then there is another condition, and it has an else, and then comes back. So indentation in Python will help you understand nested if loop. For example, if you see if here, it's 4 indents away, else also 4 indents away. So this is nested if loop. Until this loop is continued, completed, next else won't be executed. And similarly, for loop, without studying for loop, we have used it several times so far now, but we'll study the general format. For you have an iterator, and then you have an object, and then you can write a statement here. In the for loop, generally to create an object here, you use function called range. Range generates a sequence. For example, range of, if I put 5, generates a, okay, how to print, no, print list. Make it a list so to show you. Work. Okay, how to convert, I'm not sure, but range is an object on itself, which it generally generates 0 to 5 sequence. So if you put range of length of grades, that means length is nothing but how much long the list is, and range of length will allow you to print the length and all. Again, range comes up with all the step, start, stop, step and all, which we have seen in the list sequences. If you put range of 3,2, okay, they should be coming, right? Right. I think I made some mistake sometime back. 3,10. So range always generates a sequence in case you want to iterate over integer or list. In for loop also you can have else, wherein at the end of the for loop you can generate the else loop. So for I in digits, print I and then print empty. So it iterates to 0, 1, 2 and then prints empty, the last one. So for else loop is like, okay, after completion of the entire loop you have one sequence to operate, then you can use one statement to operate, you can use for else loop. Okay, just try this out guys, everyone. For loop, if else loop once to practice, and then we can go to next part of handling exceptions. I'll give you 5 minutes, please practice. Perfect. Others? Right. All right. The next part we will look at it is handling exceptions. Okay. Exceptions are nothing but, or errors to be precise, when you type something wrong or when some logical error occurs or some math error occurs. What Python generally does it stop executing, right? If you look at C or Java, there are first of all, you try to compile it and then you execute it. So there are two operations, whereas in Python, there's no compiling and executing. You go directly for execution, right? It's runtime compiling. So the chances of error are high. When an error comes up, your next operation is not executed, it breaks. So in such cases, what we do is like you try to do exception handling. Exception handling is nothing but handling runtime errors. It may be anything, but what you try to do is like, instead of executing the statements directly like this, you try to use something called as try and except block. What do you mean by try and except block? When you put anything in try block, Python tries to execute it. If you get any error, it doesn't stop execution, but it will go into except block and tries to execute here. All right. So this is very useful, especially when you are in experimentation or in real time. Some unexpected data errors or any error might occur, but still execution occurs and you'll get a printout of what error is happening. Here we, again, when you talk about errors, there are a lot of types of errors which can happen. Some of the errors are classified. Here I'm talking about a zero division error. For example, we have 5 pounds of guavas and the number of, we wanted to divide it among certain people. So you're trying to, I'll show you, we're trying to divide it. Example, how many ways are we divided? How many ways are we? Let's say you're entering the number of people. So you can get, each person get 1 pound of guava. For example, there's a nasty person who want to enter 0. For example, if I don't have this, let's say exception, I'll show you without exception how it looks like. Control C. And then just you put 0 here, it will throw a zero division error. It won't give any output. Why it happened? I entered 0, zero division is not possible. But if I write the program like this and I still enter 0, what happens? It gives you a nice printout saying you can't divide by 0, try again, right? So that's the fundamental use of, it's not customer centric, but it is more of course, it looks like an application built for website, but in real life also, it will show you some error. Instead of stopping the execution, it will show you error. So here we wrote zero division error, but you need not write it also. You can just try an except block. When you put just an except block, whatever the error may be, you get into it. If you mention zero division error, then for some errors it won't get into. For example, I'll put on spoil this. Invalid syntax, right? But it's not catching. Let me check. Oh, syntax errors cannot be calculated. Let's say, okay. So when you don't specify zero division error, any error it gets through, it gets to except block. But if you specify zero division error, only if the error is zero division, you'll go into this. In case of any errors or any other errors, it will again throw an error, throw the error. So exception handling is again a huge topic. When it's a complete chapter when you go to Java or C++. Same is for Python. We don't teach so much into depth, but please remember, when you're doubtful that a code will execute or not, just put it in try and except block and execute it. Especially when the stakes are high of failing. Now the next part is Python functions. Functions are like, if you want to keep on using a particular logic again and again, instead of writing the entire logic, you write it as in the form of a function. All right. So for example, I want to get the sum of a series of numbers, right? I give the start number and I give the end number, and I just try to get the sum here. Of course, there are already implementations available for the sum of an array, but if you have anything else that can be not used, then you can use functions. So how do you define functions? DEF is the way of initialization. The next comes the function name, which has to be used again, again. You have to remember this, or some editors allow to you remember. Then you have to pass some variables here. Start and end are the variable names which I'm keeping. And this have to be passed when you call this function. And inside this, you can put some results. I kept result equals 0, result plus 1. And you can put return result, that will show it. So when you want to, you can execute this, and this piece of code can be executed again and again. Instead of writing it, you can just call it as sum of series, and you just pass the start and end. It will return you the output. Right? So this is very useful when you structure the code. The operations which are executed multiple times can be kept inside a function, and you can call it. Right? Guys, try to write a function, right, which returns whether the number is even or odd. Write a function which takes the input as a single number and returns whether it's an even number or an odd number. Just try it out. Return it. Anyone? How to write even odd? Define. Let's say I'll name even, odd, and you can pass number, colon. How do you execute it? So if number percentage of 2 is equal to 0, okay, you can return even, else you can return odd, okay, sorry, this should be double equal to, right? So I can put even underscore or of 5 small define, where you should put it as a string. Not sure. Okay, Yeah, you can return a string, you can return a number, just returning even or odd, 5 string. You can more beautify it by, yeah. Got it? This is a way to write a function. You can more beautify saying it's a even number or it's an odd number, something. Finally, we'll close with two functions. One is called lambda function or and map function. Lambda function generally is a single line function. Just like a list comprehension in which we wrote for loop in a single line, sometimes some functions need only one time execution, but you may need to iterate in that one particular line. Instead of naming a function name and all, you can use a lambda function. Lambda functions are also called as nameless functions. That means they don't have any name. You just write it in a single line. Now, how do you define it? Lambda is definition. What are the variables you have to pass? X and Y, and use a colon, and then write the statement X comma Y, and then from here you can pass the inputs, and it will return the output. So this lambda function can be used inside any loop or any single line of code or any array wise operations or row wise operations. Instead of rewriting as define multiply x y return x y, you can write it as simple as this. Similarly is map function. Map function is like iterating a function over certain inputs. Let's say you have a lambda x of x is x square and you want to execute this particular function multiple times over a list of inputs. What you can do is like you can quickly write map, write a function, and then pass the input. So each element is passed into this function and all this is returned to a list. So map function is like you can map two variables. You can execute a function over multiple variables, something like that.